Okay, without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the stage for our book talk. We like to bake in a book talk for our programs because I'm an author and a journalist and a content person. And so we always have a book talk in our programs. And I'm going to welcome to the stage Edward C., who is the author of China's Disruptors. And he's going to be interviewed by Vijay of The Economist. So why don't you come up and take a seat here, and we'll let you take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
We can get the other mic working. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Great to be here, I think. And it's a great pleasure to be here with Ed. If you haven't seen or read Ed's book yet, I highly recommend it. I reviewed it in The Economist, and it is one of the best things written about the rise of the private sector and the entrepreneurial society in China. Having said that, Ed, let's delve into the heart of your arguments a little bit, and then we'll talk a little bit about maybe maybe you're too optimistic a little bit, given the realities of China sometimes. So we're going to cover this as soon as we perhaps get a microphone for you. Is it? Okay.
Hello? Hi.
There we go. Great.
Very good.
Great. So, can you summarize your argument about the arc of the rise of entrepreneurial China? Because when people look at the headlines, what people outside of China tend to see is the state-dominated economy. Now, we look at the red chips. If we look at the Fortune 500 list, almost 100 of the Fortune 500 list of the world's biggest companies are from Greater China. Most of them are state-owned enterprises. We look at the debt problem, the zombie companies. This is what gets a lot of play. But you argue that, in fact, the private sector has been the engine, entrepreneurial private sector. Why?
Yeah, certainly. If you look at, from the data standpoint, if you trace both the total revenue as well as the total profit between the state sector and the non-state sector in China over the last 15, 16, 17 years, at the end of the 90s, both the state sector and non-state sector are both equal in terms of revenue, and also equal in terms of profit. But today, or maybe a year or so ago, when the statistics came out, on the revenue side as well as on the profit side, the non-state sector is about 3 to 4 times bigger than that of the state sector. So in a way, you're right, because some of the largest single companies in China are SOEs, right? ICBC, Sinopec, China Mobile, and all these companies are big. But what most of the time the media doesn't really talk about is the combined effect, but also the speed, and the scale of the rise of the private sector. So we believe that it is not quite appropriate to call China's economy just a state economy. It's right, but it's only partially right. The other side of the story is equally, if not more important, and actually certainly much more exciting.
And certainly when we look at the job creation, almost all net new jobs in the last 15 years in Chinese cities have been created by the private sector. And you chronicle the rise of the early waves of private sector entrepreneurs, and you see several waves of entrepreneurship. We don't have time to go into the whole history. People in this room would certainly know about the BAT companies and some of the early days of the internet. Can you tell us what is the current wave of entrepreneurship that you see? How do you describe it?
Well, I think the current wave is driven by two sides. One is the participants, the people who are trying entrepreneurship, and increasingly, as many of you know, it's not only spreading in terms of the number of entrepreneurs, there are people who are trying to become entrepreneurs, but it's also getting younger, much younger. The guys who are not trying out people. A lot of people are in their, we call them post-80s or post-90s, in the 30s and in the 20s. It's a phenomenon that we are now seeing.
How many of you in this room are below 40? Hands up. And keep them. How many of you are below 30? Okay, well, I see what you're saying.
Congratulations.
For you, exactly. It wasn't that long ago that Ed and I could have raised our hands. Not that long ago.
Not me, sorry.
So clearly you have a cultural phenomenon in China where for a long time it was parents wanted their children to work for a state-owned enterprise. then perhaps it became more maybe work for a multinational, a safe job, a prestigious job. But we've seen now the premier and other leaders praising entrepreneurship. I mean, you can't turn on the CCTV without seeing Premier Li at some kind of maker's space somewhere, right? Shenzhen, Beijing, Chongqing. So clearly they want to encourage risk-taking, that culturally it's okay. But the reason the government is saying it so forcefully, aside from the weakness of the state sector, which we know about, gets to a little bit of an area I want to press on with you, and that is culture. It has been observed that the Chinese education system, with the Gaokao and the various Confucian overlays, is hierarchical. It doesn't encourage challenging authority or received wisdom and so on. And some people have said that, in fact, that is a reason that Chinese innovation has been stifled in the past. First of all, do you accept the premise? Is there anything to it at all? And if so, how do you explain the new energy among younger people?
Well, I think, over the years, a lot of people have sort of studied the Chinese system, and education system is one part of it, but also many other areas that people have sort of studied and try to relate the phenomenon with what they see. And typically, these are issues related to, for example, the lack of IPR, the intellectual property protection, for example, in education. The fact that, people say, well, and this is, at least, as of a couple of years ago, there's no scientific sort of Nobel laureate who's real Chinese, right? Or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that people say, in particular, the Western sort of multinational people, right, as you know. They say, well, that's why we're not successful in China, that's why China's, we're difficult and all this stuff. But in reality, if you look at, what's been happening in the last, 15 years, especially in the last 5, 10 years, the rapid rise of the entrepreneurial companies and the impact that they're creating is phenomenal. It is phenomenal not only within the context of China only, but also outside of China increasingly. And I believe that, each one of those reasons, including education system, by itself is correct. But if you put all these reasons together, they're actually incorrect, because what's even more important is the dynamics of the Chinese market. Is this wish of the Chinese people, in particular young people, who want to be better, who want to be successful. If someone like a Jack Ma can be successful, why not me? Why can't I be successful? And the society is full of so many pain points. But pain points are creating opportunity for entrepreneurship, etc. And this context, the reasons of the context, are actually more important and more prevalent than the individual reasons, including the education system, that a lot of people talk about.
So this is a fascinating argument. So you're not denying the educational system. It's hard to deny. It is what it is. But rather say that that's not a sufficient handicap to hold back a younger generation of entrepreneurs. Just look at the market success. We could probably take that argument further. If it's Silicon Valley. It's been noted a third of the startups have a co-founder of Chinese passport, of birth, and who probably went for undergraduate education in China.
And a lot of Indians too.
A lot of Indians are there too, but from the perspective of sort of the Confucian argument and the Gaokao, that's really an East Asian question. Clearly, when the seed falls on fertile soil, you see tremendous dynamic entrepreneurship among Chinese who are there, and of course come back as sea turtles, and you're seeing it in the Chinese companies that you see in the marketplace, maybe shifting space for the private sector. What does that say to another challenge that I could put to you, and that is there is space for the Chinese sector, that is Chinese companies, to prosper, to meet the pain points, but not foreign companies. A lot of guys here will be in the internet sector. Can't get Facebook, Twitter's effectively blocked, Google was scared off, or left depending on one's point of view, not cutting the ads. And so in other words, there is a bit of you can be a big fish in a smallish pond, but you cannot imagine a globally competitive company coming out of China tech or China entrepreneurship. I'm sure there'll be some people in the audience who are going to say, hey, I'm one of those globally competitive companies. We want to hear from you in a moment. But I want to hear what the great guru has to say about the idea that there is some benefit from regulation, a bit of a protected market or national champions. And that's why the Alibabas, certainly the Baidus and so on, may have gotten ahead.
Yeah, there's certainly some cases where foreign tech companies have been sort of quote-unquote banned due to different reasons, and therefore it has given opportunities for the local companies to grow. At the same time, it's also not universally true. As you know, there are many cases where foreign companies, actually the tech companies, were actually allowed to come into China, and somehow they couldn't quite get traction in China for right or for wrong. For example, as you know, 13 years ago when eBay came, nobody blocked eBay, but they were, Matt Whitman was beaten hands down by Jack Ma. Why is that the case, right? There are a lot of reasons why that's the case, and I think that the game is still going on. People like Airbnb, Uber are getting smarter, as you know. They're coming in, they have the local partners to help and so on. But nonetheless, if you look at the competition, for example, between the Uber and all the other car-hailing applications from China, in particular Didi Kuaidi or Didi Chuxing, actually Uber is not at an advantage, even though there's a lot of support from at least the Chinese investors in the whole process. So I think to just say that foreign tech companies are all blocked and therefore it gives the rooms to the local players, I think it's only partially true. In fact, I say it's only a minority of the cases. The majority of the cases actually not. The key is whether or not companies, whether it's Chinese or foreign, actually understand the context of running business in China in the most effective manner. And I say that as a game, or it's a lot of techniques or strategies that every company needs to have to develop. And I don't think there's any bias between the Chinese company and the foreign company, at least in my point of perspective.
How would you look at the pressure on free expression, censorship, and so on that we're seeing? At the moment, The Economist is blocked in our WeChat account. We're not unique; lots of others are in the media. Some people argue the European Chamber of Commerce last year put out a report arguing that the blocks on communication on the VPNs that block, or even blocks on VPNs that used to be allowed, they said is a tax on innovation. Those were their words. That they're finding that their own European companies are less likely to invest in R&D sectors, to be able to attract the best PhDs to come from German universities to work in Shanghai or wherever, and they encourage the government to rethink from the perspective of innovation some of the controls. Since that report came out, it has only gotten more severe. Is it legitimate to say that this is a tax on Chinese innovation?
Well, again, I think it depends on which perspective you take. I think if you look at it from the European Chamber of Commerce, there's certainly a lot of reasons, a lot of rationale for that kind of argument. Yet at the same time, as we said, we're seeing tremendous amount of innovation, a lot of the business model innovation, but also increasingly technology innovation coming out from China. A lot came from Chinese companies, but actually a lot come from also non-Chinese companies operating in China. And this happens despite the fact that, as you said correctly, that there's a lot of blockage and censorship and so on. The question is, why is that the case? Why these innovations are coming? And in a way, right, I think for those of you in particular, here who are Chinese, who probably sort of on things like WeChat, on Weixin, or on Weibo, actually, there's a lot of information that's going on. I think the Chinese are very well versed of what's happening outside of China, and including news from the Economist, but also the Wall Street Journal and so on, through this kind of social media. So I don't think, just the fact that, for example, an Economist was quote-unquote censored, the Chinese were lack of information. There's still a lot of information. I don't think it has deterred the momentum that innovation has been developing.
So the proof is in the pudding, is your argument, and clearly there's lots of innovation out there. If we were to turn the question around, and I want to come to questions from the floor, so please get a question or two together, good ones. Let's challenge our expert here, make him work for his supper, or his cocktail anyway, that's going to come soon. If we do have this clear, dynamic, entrepreneurial, innovative economy, can you point to particular areas where you think China might even leapfrog to the world's frontier? What are a couple of areas that you find most promising?
Well, as you know, some of the basic reasons why we're seeing tremendous innovation coming from China is not only the pain points and so on that we talk about, is the fact that Chinese are getting a lot of information. Chinese are studying, as you know, the Silicon Valley in great detail. By the way, I think all of you know, who is the biggest who has the biggest followership in China in the tech space? Let me ask you. Who has the biggest followership? I'm not talking about
Twitter followers or something?
I'm talking, biggest number of followers in the tech space in China? I'm not talking about Jack Ma. I'm not talking about Peng Lin.
Who wants to take a guess?
Yeah, take a guess. Kai Fu is pretty good, yeah, but he's not there yet. Nielsen is very good, not quite there. Let me just, short. It's Kevin Kelly, right? Kevin.
Wired.
KK, from Wired. And every time Kevin Kelly came to China, maybe a room of, maybe 10 rooms of this size were filled up right away. Why is that the case? Because Kevin came and he brought knowledge and information about the cutting edge technology development in the Silicon Valley. And that's what the Chinese are going after. They're going after this kind of information, the cutting edge information. So to answer your question, I think areas where we see quick development in technology trends, where there are pain points that in entrepreneurship and new business models can fulfill pain points, and also there's areas that there's tremendous competition, as you know, right? China in areas that are open, you probably see or we see typically the world's most intensive competition here in China. For example, we just had the Beijing Auto Show here, right, in the city. I think some of you may have gone to it and may have noticed. And what's the biggest story in the auto show? Of course, Tesla is a big story, right? In addition to Tesla, what is the driverless car, right? And electrical vehicle. And of one Tesla, which is of course a great company, there are probably 10, 15 other Chinese companies who want to say, I will be the next Tesla, I'm going to be better than Elon Musk. The TV is saying that, right? For right or wrong. And this is what's happening, is that, yeah, there may be one American or whatever, foreign companies who are at the top end, but there are 10, 15, 20, 100 Chinese guys. A lot of them are pretenders, but a small percentage of a large number, as you know, is still a large number. And
so you can get more shots on goal. You can flood the zone, as it were, of technological innovation. China certainly has lots and lots of good quality, relatively inexpensive engineering talent, for example, to work on hard problems, as well as brilliant scientists on top of that. And just in the car space, I do agree with you on that, although some other claims I'm skeptical, but when it comes to cars, my last book, before the most recent one on innovation, was The Future of the Car. And among other things, it seems to me that making old-fashioned cars with internal combustion engines, which, Mercedes has had more than 100 years to perfect that technology and the soft skills that go around it, maybe not a great success. We haven't seen a great Chinese car maker making old-fashioned cars. But if you're going to leapfrog to the electric drive vehicle, which is new, you don't have legacy benefits being a traditional car maker in the West. And you can imagine companies like the VAT companies or some startups having great advantage in making electronics. China is the world's best place to make electronics, the whole supply chains here. And you suddenly see a culture that's ready to adopt innovative products and technologies in a new way. Then you can see how this ecosystem would support a leapfrog here, faster certainly than in Europe, for example, where the regulations now forbid driving without your hands on the wheel. This is a UN convention that all the European countries are party to. China is not. So suddenly there's a regulatory opening for driverless cars. No one has to hold their wheel up. So that's a great example. Let's turn to the audience, if we might. Anyone want to ask a question or a challenge? Or maybe share an experience based on something you heard that resonates with your own company. Who here thinks you might be able to get to the global frontier, the technology frontier, with your company? Yes, sir.
Don't be shy, and I'm going
Please
to give you
identify
a
yourself.
microphone, and you need to say who you are.
My name is Philip Johnson. Who's going to be the big player in the health field?
Of course, the expert, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think certainly health or digital health is coming along as well. A lot of people say this is probably the next frontier in China. And as you all know, also too, BAT is getting pretty big into it. And of course, most recently, Ali Health was ruled as not quite appropriate. And I think over time they may be able to resolve that. But in my view, we're going to see a lot of startups working in this general space. We're going to see the big players like BAT will continue to cultivate. I think Jack Ma is looking at that as one of the sort of after Ant Financial, that could be the next play for him. And so I think these are the plays that we're going to watch over. And of course, you got some of the quote-unquote more traditional players who's been in the health space, they're also getting into the connected health. People like Foshan, for example, in my view, would have a pretty good chance of carving a good position.
I would just offer a thought in terms of health. The study from McKinsey not too long ago looked at which are the cities in the world that will have the largest proportion of older people that are affluent. And these golden oldies, 5 of the top 10 cities in the world that they forecast were in China, with Shanghai and Beijing number 1 and 2 in the world with the affluence, but of course the health problems that would come with older age. So we can imagine an enormous marketplace to help cater to those issues. Another question or a comment?
Okay, no, we need a new question. New questioner. Okay, I guess not.
Well, I may ask, oh, there's a gentleman in the back.
Okay, let me get a mic to Matt and,
So we talked about.
hold on, Matt.
So what 5 areas are you watching most closely now? So we talked about electric vehicles. We talked a little bit about digital health. What else are you focused on? Right, and if you were to invest, say, the typical question, right, $100 bucks across, 3 companies, what would they be?
Yeah, I think, as you know, probably the hottest topic right now in China, as well as in the Silicon Valley, is artificial intelligence and virtual reality. And as you also know, that is not a particular industry, right? It's a technology that's being applied across different industries. So, for example, the latest development in retail is Gemma is talking about combination of VR and retail, and I think that's a fascinating new ways of thinking about the retail business. And I think those are the areas that getting a lot of attention these days. Application of AI and VR across the board is probably the biggest topic now.
Okay, well, let's give Vijay and Edward a round of applause. Very, very informative. And Edward brought his book.
Buy that book.
And he has several books here.
I'm not sure it's enough for everybody, but if you want to get a copy, purchase a copy, sorry. Please, by all means, it will be my pleasure and honor. Thank you very much.
And are they signed copies, Edward? Signed copies. Okay, very good. Thank you again. Really appreciate it.